Check it out, my friends. I have included timestamps to every part of this video in the info box below. So if there's a specific thing you want to skip to and watch, just check that info box out and click on the timestamp. You're welcome. Give me a thumbs up if that helps and enjoy the video. What's up, guys? It's Nick Wright. So a lot of you have been asking me recently to do reviews on various weightlifting belts and knee sleeves that I use, and just asking in general what good brands are, what the best knee sleeves, what the best weightlifting belts are, what the best wrist straps are to use. Do you even need them? When should you start using them? So I actually wanted to take a minute to sit down and go over a bunch of different options you guys can pick from based on pricing, efficiency, bang for buck, how effective they are, different luxuries that different brands offer that other ones don't, the whole 9 yards. I've personally been powerlifting for the past half a decade. I've done about 8 or 9 meets now so far. My current numbers are a 550 squat, a 405 bench, and a 610 deadlift as a 182-pound powerlifter. I've also worked with, trained with, been coached by, and filmed some of the best powerlifters in the entire world within the sport. Just outside of Chicago with none other than Eric Lillybridge and the entire Lillybridge family. An internet favorite in powerlifting, Pete Rubish, my coach, and a 2-time IPF world champion powerlifter, Brett Gibbs. Reuniting with my boy Russ Swole. And learned a lot from them as well. So these opinions are based on both my experiences, my preferences, what I currently use and love today. A quick disclaimer is I am affiliated with Slingshot, but I am not under an exclusive contract with them. I have a discount code with them that you guys can use or not use, and it gives you a discount on all of their products if you do want to use it. But I never signed anything saying that I had to be exclusive to them. I'm allowed to show, use, talk about, brag about any other brands that I want, and I'm gonna make this video extremely unbiased and honest and show a few different brands to you guys. Now, before we dive in, the big question I get is, do I even need equipment, and when should I start using equipment? So the real answer is no, you don't need this equipment. This equipment is simply a tool to optimize your lifting, like a belt, for example. People have the wrong idea about belts. People think that a belt is a crutch. It's something that you need to lean on when you're too weak to do it without a belt. So people will train beltless forever and ever thinking it strengthens their core. It'll strengthen your core a little bit. They've actually done a lot of research that shows there isn't a whole lot of core stimulation, at least it's not as much as we think, by doing something like beltless squats. Regardless, yes, your body is built mechanically to do all of these movements, and if you lock your form down, you can go forever without adding any equipment to them. Why should you add equipment to them? Simply longevity. Something like a knee sleeve is not gonna actually add poundage to your squat. Some people will argue it can add 5 to 10 pounds. I personally disagree. I think it might be different based on the individual lifter, their technique, their mechanics, the whole 9 yards. But either way, it's not gonna be adding a whole lot. It's not gonna make you a 600-pound squatter if you can only squat 500 pounds. Same with a wrist strap. I benched into the mid 300s without wrist straps. Still don't even need them. I have no pain in my wrists whatsoever. I simply chose to start wearing them because I was constantly supporting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds for multiple reps and sets, multiple times a week on this little ass joint that is my wrist. And I realized this is fine now, but when I'm 60, my wrist might be hurting. You get the bad heart and the arthritis kicking in, and you don't want that. So all of this stuff is just simply preemptive. It's longevity. It's like making sure you stay up on your oil change so your car runs smooth for a long period of time. It's nothing to do with ego or crutches. When should you start wearing it? That's totally up to you. I do recommend you take a while to build your base without anything first, more for mental sake. Because if you jump right into using belts and sleeves, what might happen as a new lifter is you start believing that you need those to lift successfully. And then if there's ever a day where you forgot your belt, suddenly you'll be freaking out and you're getting in your own head and you feel like you can't move any weight without it. You don't want to be reliant on this stuff like it is a crutch. So I would say get the basics down pat first, but when you decide to finally throw something on, it's totally up to you. So belts, first off, the two things you need to narrow down is, do you want a 13mm thick belt or a 10mm thick belt? And do you want a lever belt or a prong belt? And then within prongs, there's double prong, there's single prong. We'll get into all of that in a minute. So let's start off with the thicknesses. I personally have a 13mm thick Inzer belt that I use for squatting. And my deadlift belt, which is a slingshot belt, is a 10 millimeter thick belt. Personally, I recommend staying with 10 millimeters. 13 millimeters is a little abrasive and it takes so long to break in. When you first get one of these new belts, your ribs and hips are gonna be bruised and it's not gonna feel comfortable to work out with because they're so damn thick and stiff. So there's a break-in period. The 10 millimeters break in a little bit faster. The 13 millimeters are so thick that they're stubborn and take months to break in comfortably. And honestly, I don't think there's a huge difference. I love squatting with my 13 millimeter. I wouldn't trade it for the world now that I have it, but if I ever had to get a new one, I'd probably just get a 10 millimeter. I've borrowed 10 millimeter belts to squat with when I haven't had my own gym bag. I've deadlifted with 10 millimeter belts and I can lift just as well in those as I can the 13. Not a huge difference. So in my opinion, the 13 is just a bit more of a pain in the ass, really. So let's get into the lever belts. Lever belts, they're amazing. I love them. They're my favorite style of belt. You set your setting, traditionally you set your setting based on your waist size, and then from there all you have to do is latch and unlatch your belt to tighten it or loosen it. You want to tighten it up, you quickly just lock the latch, you're locked in, you're good to go. You're done with your set, you just flick that little latch, it's like hitting a light switch and suddenly it's loose. It's so nice compared to those stubborn old prong belts where you had to basically press your whole body weight up against a rack nearby just to try to get that prong down into that hole and then exert even more energy trying to reverse that and get the belt off after a heavy set. The lever belts are a huge luxury. The top two lever belts are going to be Inzer, which is my personal favorite, and SBD. So let's get into the SBD first and foremost since it's a hot topic these days. So the SBD belt is the newer one on the scene and I have to give them credit. I'm gonna do pros and cons here. Their design is pretty genius. There's a huge flaw with all lever belts that once you had them set to your waist size, if you ever lost weight or gained weight, to readjust them was kind of a pain in the ass. It wasn't the biggest deal in the world, but you actually have to manually go in and unscrew the lever itself, bring it down to a new notch or bring it up to a looser notch, rescrew it back in. It didn't take very long. Most lever belts you can use a penny or a screw to do it with, but it's still a little more annoying than the quick adjustment of a prong belt. That's one of the pros of a prong over a lever belt. So SBD came around and they revolutionized it. They gave us the lever, which we love, but they made it so the other end of the belt, unlike the Inzer and unlike every other lever belt, has multiple holes in it for the teeth to grip onto. So you can actually adjust the size of the belt as you want to, as easily as you can adjust a prong belt. Huge pros here with the SBD are it has the efficiency of size adjustment of a prong belt while still giving you the luxury of a lever belt. And aesthetically, it is probably the sexiest belt on the market. It has this red suede interior on top of this sleek black leather, and it has the lever that looks something like it would be on Iron Man's suit. Like it looks like Tony Stark designed it. It's a very sleek looking design if you care about looks. The biggest cons are the price range. Most of these belts, good quality belts, both lever and prong, are gonna range in the $100 range. For example, the Inzer Lever Forever belt, my belt, it goes as low as 80 bucks, 89 bucks I've seen it as low as, and it ranges on average around $100. The most expensive I've personally ever seen it was $125. I've never seen it any higher than that at all. The SBD belt starts at about $225, and I've personally seen it go as high as over $300 on certain markets. It's double, sometimes triple the price of an Inzer belt. It's currently, at the time of making this video, $227 on the SBD Anderson Powerlifting site, which is insane. The other big con is that, as sexy as it is, that red is known to bleed onto shirts. Russ Swoll actually told me himself that that was one of the things he didn't care for about the SBD belt. When he first put it on, it would start ruining shirts and it would leave red stains all over your shirts. It would bleed onto your shirts. So you're paying double, if not triple the price you would for an Inzer belt for essentially the same quality as far as bracing your core, and you're potentially ruining your shirt, which I think is a huge negative. I personally, my personal opinion, I would never waste my money on that. I think it's a huge dump of money, and I would forever just stick with Inzer belt, same exact quality. The only con of the Inzer is that you have to take a little bit more time to adjust the sizing, but in reality, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've ever had to actually adjust my sizing. It takes a good 15 pounds of weight loss or weight gain to have to actually go up or down a notch on the Inzer belt. And again, it's half the price, if not more than half the price, and it doesn't stain your shirts. And lastly, there are some random no-name belts or smaller name belts that do have leathers, but they're kind of unreliable in my opinion. Like here's an example of one. This is a Valeo belt. And again, it'll get the job done, and if you are on a budget, these will go a little bit less expensive, but all in all belts are gonna be around the $100 range. The problem with a belt like this is, as you can see, it's far thinner. I'm not sure what the sizing on this one is. It looks to be maybe 6 or 7 millimeters thick, so not nearly as supportive as the heavy hitters. I would go with Inzer for leather all day long. So the prong belts actually balance their value out by giving you better efficiency. You can adjust your sizing so much easier, and that's not just beneficial when you're cutting or bulking. I personally like having a looser fitting belt when I deadlift than I do when I squat, just because of the positioning. When I bend over and then I brace, I need a little bit looser belt area so I don't push my own spine out of position. Versus when I'm upright squatting, I need to be a little bit extra tight. So I have two belts currently. I have my Inzer lever belt, and then I have my strong prong belt. If you have just a prong belt as your only belt, you're all set with that issue right there. One belt to serve both jobs. So that's a beautiful thing. Now, as far as what I use, I am using the 10 millimeter thick strong belt by Slingshot. This thing's beautiful, and I have to say flat out, given that the price range is about the same for all of these belts, this one is going to be your best bang for your buck, hands down, because of a huge reason. It comes pre-broken in. A lot of you have never dealt with bruised ribs, and it shows. When you buy a nice belt like these, a 10 millimeter or 13 millimeter thick belt, they take forever to break in, as we discussed. It hurts to lift with. You have to spend time wearing them. I wore mine around my kitchen when I was just doing the dishes to help break it in. I folded it up and stuck it under my mattress. It leaves your ribs bruised, your hips bruised, like literally purple. It's not fun for about a month until they finally mold to your body and loosen up a little bit. These come pre-broken in. So literally the first day I got this and unboxed it, I went and pulled 605 pounds on a stiff bar. My all-time best stiff bar pull still to date. The first day I had this, which I would never normally do with a new belt because it would feel way too uncomfortable to try to do that. So this is by far and away the best. Now, their pricing is a little higher than some of the other options. These run at about $125 on their site. That's actually only about $108, I believe, with my discount code. It's 10% off, and I'm not good at math, but it's just a hair over $100 after the discount code, which brings it down to the same price as all the other belts, because all of the Inzer prong belts are all around $100 as well. The other cool benefits of this one is it's by far and away the most aesthetic one. Just like the SBD was the sexiest looking lever belt, this is by far the sexiest looking prong belt. It's just got this shiny waterproof leather, the shiny logo, black and red combination. It's really a beautiful belt. I highly recommend it. They even have numbers on the inside where their holes are, so you can remember which slot you were, which measurement you were. So in conclusion, the best bang for your buck is going to be the Inzer belt, hands down, if you're looking for a lever belt, without a doubt. And if you're looking for a prong belt, it's going to be the Mark Bell Slingshot, because again, slightly pricier, but way more bang for the buck. You're only going to be paying maybe $10 more than a competing brand at most after my discount code, and for that $10, the amount of quality you're getting and efficiency you're getting, being pre-broken in, not to mention being a sexy looking belt, just there's no reason not to, hands down. So let's move on to knee sleeves now, the fun stuff. So again, people get a lot of confusion. If knee sleeves don't help you lift more weight, some might argue they help a little bit. Okay, even if they help add 5 to 10 pounds, it's 5 to 10 pounds. What's the actual point of using knee sleeves? For me, it's joint health. When you warm up your knees, pedaling on a bike, doing anything to get your blood moving before you start squatting, knee sleeves are helping that same process happen much faster. You throw on knee sleeves, suddenly there's no snap, crackle, and pop. It keeps your knee joints warm and lubricated and moving healthily throughout the entire squat session. So again, it's just compression on a joint that's gonna help move the joint more efficiently and lead to longevity, years of squatting. So let's dive in. Everyone started off with Rehbands. These are like the OG knee sleeves, right? Now these are still around. These were my first knee sleeve as well, but they've faded out of the powerlifting picture a lot. They're pretty much heavily in CrossFit, which I think is where they should stay, because this is a solid knee sleeve if you're just doing light activities that just involve a lot of moving around. Not really a knee sleeve you want for heavy load like powerlifting, strongman, or strength training, because they're just so damn flimsy. They're so unsupportive and unabrasive and thin. The material is just so damn thin. So these are out. Next up came SBD. They really kind of shut down the market for a while. I don't have any of my SBDs on me. I gave them or sold them all away. But SBD first came out with their original style knee sleeves, which were amazing. Best knee sleeve on the market by far when they first came out. And they remained pretty good until they changed up their recipe. They changed their whole blend of fabric up, and they came out with these looser, flimsier, less supportive knee sleeves. So now all the current SBD knee sleeves that you can buy are not the same as the original SBDs, and they suck. They're flimsy, they remind me of the Rehbands. I hate them. Now, I had the original pairs, I loved them, they were awesome. I had the new pairs and I hated them. I even tried going a size down with the new pair just so it'd be a little bit tighter and make up for being less abrasive, and it still sucks. So I am not with SBD at all anymore. I don't think they have good sleeves anymore. They're all right. They're like middle of the road, especially with the new sleeves that are out now by various different brands. So soon after that, Slingshot really made their sleeves more versatile. I actually used their first powerlifting sleeve. I think it was the first one I remember seeing that came out like half a decade ago. I used these bad boys on my first 500-pound squat. That was years back. So that's how much I've loved Slingshot. Even before I was ever with them, I was using them. These are the same design and cut as the Ray-Bans, but they were a little bit more abrasive, so they felt really good. Not quite as good as the original SBD sleeves. But then Slingshot made up for it by coming out with their strong sleeves. And those strong sleeves were the best sleeve on the market until this year. For years, those things killed every other sleeve that ever came out. They kind of reminded me of the original SBD sleeve actually, but even better. They were just so damn abrasive. And I even snuck them into a USAPL meet once before Slingshot got IPF approved. Now Slingshot is IPF approved, so you can wear them. But I was wearing them religiously and sneaking them into local meets even before that because I loved them. So that was the best sleeve for a while. A7 has come out with a few different sleeves that are also really, really good. A7 sleeves are probably right on par with the strong sleeves as far as fabric supportive quality goes. And their pricing's probably the best. If you're looking for the best pricing for quality, probably have to go to A7 in that regard if you're on a budget. They're not the best sleeves in the market that you can get, for sure, but if you're on a budget, they're not a bad option. Their prices range in the 60s. I haven't looked recently at what they are, but I know they're always like around that $60, $70 mark, roughly. And they're good quality, same as the strong sleeves. So after the strong sleeves, though, this past year, Slingshot really turned it up a notch and absolutely shut down the market. Slingshot dropped the best two sleeves out right now, period, hands down. Like it's a toss up with the belts. There's pros and cons among all the belts, not with knee sleeves. Slingshot came out with the X sleeves, which I don't have mine on me because Ricky has my X sleeves. Thanks, Ricky. Now these are IPF approved, and these are the strongest IPF approved sleeves out there, period. They're 7.5 millimeters thick, but they're this really firm, almost denim-y feeling material. And don't get me wrong, they feel nice and smooth on your legs. They're not coarse, they don't hurt, but they're super ultra supportive. It's unreal how those things feel, and they're IPF approved. So if you want something that is IPF approved, the best sleeve you can possibly get is the X sleeve, and it is unfortunately probably the most expensive sleeve on the market, not by much. I think they're about $85, whereas a lot of like SBD sleeves, strong sleeves, a lot of sleeves are usually around 80 bucks. Again, with my discount code, that will knock it down into the 70s. So now suddenly with the discount code, you can get the X sleeves for less than $10 more than the A7 sleeves, and the quality difference is just insane. The best quality in the world for 70-something after the code. So worth it. Last but not least, the best sleeve on the market right now is the Gangsta sleeve, hands down. This is a 9.5 millimeter thick sleeve. When you first put these on, they feel like little knee wraps on you. Like you feel like you just put a brace on your leg. You can't walk, it's amazing. They have a longer length for extra support, and they're super thick. The problem is, at almost 10 millimeters thick, they're not IPF approved. So check with your federation if you're concerned about that before you buy them. Or you can do what I always did and just buy these to wear year round in the gym, and just put on something that's IPF approved for meet day. That's what I always did, because here's the thing you gotta think about. Meet day isn't really what beats your knees up. You only squat 3 times at a meet. It's not that much. It's in the gym where you're doing your high volume, heavy training. In the gym is where you're doing your 5 sets of 5 reps, 3 times a week with 80, 85% of your max. That volume is where the wear and tear comes from. So you want something that's really supportive and heavy duty in the gym year round. So I recommend this all day long for your overload, for your volume, for your intensity work in the gym. If you do compete in USAPL, just throw something else on. If you don't compete in USAPL, this isn't even an issue then. Just grab these, this should be your only choice, end of discussion. They're great for strongman competitions, they're phenomenal for gym lifts and any other federation that allows them. So hands down, this is my pick as far as the best sleeve ever. The best sleeve for IPF approved is the X sleeve. The best sleeve for a budget is the A7 sleeve. I've linked everything in the info box below for you guys. Last but not least is wrist wraps. This one's short and sweet because there's not a whole lot to pick from. The best thing, in my opinion, is the Gangsta wraps. The 36-inch long Gangsta wraps is what I have. And the reason I say they're the best is, and again, I knew this was gonna sound like I'm just biased towards Slingshot, but there's a reason I've been using them for over half a decade, even before I was in touch with them. They just make the best shit, in my opinion, with most things. So the reason is, they're the only sleeve that is A, going to be this long, and B, has little luxuries to it, like the belt loop style thumb loop. So this loop can be used two different ways. I personally use it like this, which is not actually how it's supposed to be used. But even if you do use it like this, it's way more comfortable than those tiny little thumb loops that cut circulation off. And it grips both sides of the wrap, so you can pull all that slack into that wrap and make it nice and tight. Whereas the standard style wrap just has a little loop in the corner, so when you pull it, just that corner goes tight, whereas the other half of it is still loose. And it just makes it so you get less torque out of wrapping. The other way to use this is you simply wrap one side of it through like so, and then you just keep it on your wrist like this. So between sets you can just let it hang, chill, and dangle, and then when it's time to wrap, then you can just pull and wrap like this, and it's super nice. Not to mention the Gangsta wraps also have two long strips of Velcro. So when you're wrapping them, they'll start gripping and sealing with one another early on in your coiling, making it that much tighter of a wrap and that much more secure. Every other every other wrap I've ever used is similar to my old Inzers, where they're just your basic 14 to 20-ish inch, so a lot shorter, a lot less wrapping, which means a lot less support overall, and they have those tiny basic uncomfortable thumb loops that are a little bit less efficient. And again, it's not the biggest deal in the world. If you're on a budget, you don't feel like spending money, go with a really cheap basic wrist wrap. As long as it makes your wrist feel good, then it's doing the job just fine. If you want what I use, that is the Gangsta wrap, the 36 inches. That's in the info box below as well. So to recap really fast, guys, the quick sum up, what Nick Wright's using at this moment, hitting all these PRs, I'm using the Inzer Lever Forever belt. I forgot to add a huge pro to that, by the way. The forever comes from the fact that it's covered forever. So if you ever break your Inzer belt, something ever happens to it, Inzer will repair it for you forever. It's a lifetime warranty, which is unbeatable. So I use the Inzer 13mm size medium lever belt for squatting, for overhead pressing. And then I use a size large 10mm prong belt by Slingshot for my deadlifting and for all my heavy ass rowing, for all my back day stuff. For sleeves, I use the Gangsta sleeves, hands down. If I had to do an IPF meet or a USAPL meet, I would slide into the X sleeves because they're the next best thing. If I'm on a huge budget, money's tight, I would go with A7. And for wrist wraps, it's the Gangsta wraps. Stay gangsta, my friends.